Are you okay? You just clicked on a video about regret. And are you looking for something sad? Let's dial. That exposure looks okay. Yeah, as I'm almost 37 and a half over here, once you get to this age, you start to think, what could I have done differently? What do I regret? You're just sitting around, you need to think about something. Let me think about what I regret right now. That's what I do with my time nowadays. And it's been an interesting thing to think about because you have to think about like why would I regret that? And then if you think about it for long enough, a lot of these things, I'm just like, I actually don't regret it. I don't. So let's just set the table here. What do I define as regret? Negative feelings about a decision or choice that you've made, you being one, not just you personally. Wishing to be able to have taken a different path, and it kind of blurs into remorse because remorse is more, you can regret, according to the Wikipedia article, regret doesn't have to be personal. You can regret something that you had no hand in, oh man, that was regrettable that, something happened to someone else. But remorse is like, I'm sorry that I did this thing. There's a bit of a blur there. I think remorse, though, is more active. I'm sorry I did this thing. You don't necessarily have remorse for not doing something. And I think regret, at least a lot of the things on my list are like, I regret that I didn't do this. And it wasn't necessarily that I didn't do this because I chose this other thing actively. It's more like I just didn't do anything. And so it was a choice, but it wasn't like, remorse is more like I told someone they were stupid and I feel remorse that I did that, So as I've been thinking about this, and this is just coming from me, this is not like me presenting an essay of other sources, but regret is on a spectrum, obviously, because there are things, there are I could go on a list of 1,000 memories I have of like, oh man, I regret saying that because it was embarrassing, or, I regret handling a situation in a certain way because, oh, that was the wrong way. But ultimately, it's not a big deal because, ultimately no one cares and probably no one remembers. And if they do, it's water under the bridge. But I think there's more to this spectrum of regret. So I have 5 different things that are that affect where on the spectrum a regret is. So the magnitude of the decision is 1. So that's, kind of what I just talked about is, okay, just something you said that was embarrassing. That's not a very big magnitude. Deciding to, do something, make a very big decision, perceived to you, definitely makes it more of a regret. Another element is the imagined outcomes of doing the other thing. So if the imagined outcomes are really good and a lot better than your actual reality now, then that can make the regret worse. But if you really think about it and you're like, well, I guess, that's why another reason why just saying something embarrassing, it's like, well, the alternative is not that different of an outcome as I got anyway, because people don't care that much, Whereas the imagined outcome of, oh, I wish I had taken a different job offer. Oh, I might be making a lot more money. I might have gotten a promotion. I might have done all these things, right? So that affects how regretful you might be about something. Then some other things that may be less obvious that I'm putting on here. Level of awareness. And this is something where you can get stuck on it and beat yourself up. But there are some things I look back on and I'm like, oh, I regret that. But then I think like I didn't have the level of awareness to do anything else. And and the only reason why I regret it now is because it took me going through that to learn the lesson to not do it again, which I'll talk about in a little bit more specific later when I talk about the things that I actually regret. Or do I? But if you really are honest with yourself and you look back on certain things you regret, I think a lot of them you might just be like, I don't know that I could have made any other decision in that moment. or sometimes it's like maybe if you look back and you're like, I clearly knew all of the pros and cons of one way or the other, and I chose one way, and I knew I should have chosen the other way. It's okay. Maybe you kind of regret it more there, but I think if you look back at a lot of things, we're just acting kind of automatically and unconsciously without the awareness to make any other decision. So take that into account. The next thing is actual outcomes. If you are regretting something, you need to look at like the actual outcomes afterwards. And then not just like the direct ones, but also indirect things that really had nothing to do with it, but happened because you didn't go on another path. So if you make one decision, yes, you close off the other decision, but you also open yourself up to other decisions that you might not have had on the other one. And so then you have to ask yourself, would I trade all of the good things in my life now that maybe weren't directly related to that, but probably would have been, because, the whole thing of one difference in your life in the past, one different decision could have changed the entire outcome of everything after that. And spoiler alert, if you have kids, that is a big thing you have to think about when you're looking at regrets is, oh man, I wish I could have gone a different direction when I was 20. But if you have kids now, would you trade your kids to have gone a different direction? Because that's sort of like the actual outcome of your decisions is what you have now. That can wipe out a lot of regrets, at least for me. Ability to rectify the situation is another one. That one's a bit more obvious. It's like you can regret something a lot more if there's no way to go back and change it or to make amends. But if you can, like if you regret, I don't know, I regret not learning French in high school. It's like, well, I still could learn it. Like you still have the ability to rectify it. So it's not as big of a thing as if you're like, wow, I really have no way to go back and try to be a professional athlete, And I guess though, saying that, there's also kind of, well, maybe that goes hand in hand with magnitude of decision, but also just like your values and how important something is to you. Because, talking about all of us pretty much, unless you are much younger, have passed the waypoint, like the point of no return for something like being a professional athlete. But for most of us, that wasn't ever anything we wanted. So it's like we don't regret it. So, that makes it so low on the regret list that it's not even a regret anymore, because it's not part of our values. It's not something, it wasn't even really a decision. So bringing up these things that put it on the spectrum is to point out that the intensity of your feeling of regret does not always match where it is on the spectrum, because we are not necessarily being conscious about it and examining it. So that's why the whole reason I thought of this video is because I started to consciously examine things that I thought were regrets. And then I'm like, well, I guess they're not now if I'm really thinking about it. It's like I have this pang of like, oh, I missed out, but I guess it doesn't really matter. Like, so a lot of it, so here are some things that I thought I regretted that I don't think are really true regrets anymore, or if they are, they're very low on the spectrum. Because, so a lot of them have to do with school. So, well, the first two, maybe wishing I had gone to a different school or had picked a different majored in something different than theater. And that's something I have regretted in the past, not as much now, but I don't know, just thinking like maybe I could have done something more. I could have found a more stable path much earlier in life had I been a lot more serious about college and picking a college and a major and studying in it. Maybe not even picking a different major, but just going somewhere different and applying myself, because I didn't really apply myself ever. And I think, that's just something I struggle with looking back on. But again, ultimately, that path, even though what I studied and where I went to school didn't necessarily set me up for some kind of ironclad career and sense of purpose. Like, it kind of eventually led me to, where I am now, which isn't like isn't like the most amazing end goal, but it's good. Like, I can't complain about it. Another one that I thought was even a bigger regret is not moving to a different city. So I've lived in kind of the same area generally my whole life. And there are times where I'm like, man, I just wish I had moved somewhere else. And I thought about it for a while. About 10 years ago, was really thinking about it and was like, man, I could move to Texas, or I could move to, Minneapolis, or, just some random place, Chicago, and kind of start fresh in a sense, and figure out who I am and what I'm doing totally independently. And so like the perceived imagined outcomes there are like, realistically, I don't know how I would have handled that. I don't know that I would have done very well. But I could have flourished, who knows, but then I have to look at the actual outcomes, and I'm like, well, if I had moved somewhere else, my life would not, definitely would not be what it is now. So I would not trade my life now for that. So I can't say it's a big regret. Then another thing that's a bit different is a regret of like not ending relationships that were like really bad. And it's like, you can look back and be like, why did I let myself be treated so poorly for so long? And this is one where it's like, I didn't have the level of awareness. Like, the only reason that I was able to learn the lesson of, oh, I shouldn't be treated like this, was by being treated like that, And I just couldn't have made the decision to end a bad relationship back then when I was, 22 or whatever. So it's still something that bothers me, but I don't know that it's a regret. I don't know. Sometimes you wonder, why does my mind keep going back to these decisions that I made or did not make? And I don't know if it's like me trying to learn the lesson all these years later or what, but I can't say it's a regret, because I honestly didn't really have the ability to make a different decision at the time. I wasn't equipped for it. Now, then there are some regrets where it's like, maybe this is a little bit more solid of a regret. One is not traveling. Like, I really wish I had traveled more in my 20s. And 10 years ago was when I got my passport, because I was just like, I had gotten the travel bug, and I was just desperate for a change of scenery. And so I got my passport, and I was like studying like where I would go and saving up money. And I just never went. It was always sort of like, it's the kind of thing where you save up money and then you're like, do I really want to spend it now? Like, I'll just keep saving it, which is what I did. And it was also the thing of like, do I really want to travel alone? Like, everyone says that's a great thing, but I don't know if that's great for me. And looking back on it, it's hard to say how much of a regret it is, because it's still rectifiable. I can still travel. It's not going to be easy now because I have little kids, but I can still do it. I did get to go to Europe on my honeymoon, which was the first time I went to Europe. Maybe I wouldn't regret it so much had I not gone there and seen what I had missed out. But also, the imagined outcomes, like how those trips would have gone, they're totally like romanticized and, idealized, and perhaps they would have been terrible. I don't know. But that's kind of a minor regret I have, is not traveling more. So I think another way of kind of dealing with regret is just trying to like advise younger people, imagining that they're sort of in your situation, your circumstances when you were younger, and be like, hey, don't go down this path, go down this path instead. So yeah, if you're in your 20s and you want to travel, just do it, and see different places. Because I know like the very tiny bit of travel I did within the U.S. was very helpful for my mental state. Like in some ways you could call it transformative. Just like one long weekend, me and my buddy from high school went to Chicago and took a road trip out there. I feel like we spent more time driving than maybe we did in the city, but it was just like I was like night and day after that trip. Like I was like kind of depressed and like in my own head all the time. And after that trip, I was a lot more just like pumped up and ready to go. And who knows, I guess I look back and think maybe if I'd done a lot more traveling, I would have been a lot more inspired and kind of like been propelled to, different heights. But then again, you get in travel, I feel like that's one where you could be like, it wouldn't have changed my life so much that I wouldn't have met my wife and wouldn't have my kids now, but maybe it would have, in which case I'm like, well, do I really regret it? I guess not. Maybe one thing that could be more of a regret that wouldn't have changed the course of things too much, but I'm just like, what kind of a jerk was I? But not paying better attention in school, especially in college, because I was kind of, they made, at least the program I was in, made me take a lot of classes that I had no interest in, because even though I studied theater, I wasn't getting a BFA where I would have taken mostly theater classes. I was getting a BA, Bachelor of Arts, so it was like a liberal arts degree, so I had to take a lot of other classes. I had to take a science class, a math class, all these things I had no interest in. And sure, yeah, it's like, okay, can you blame me for not paying that much attention? But I don't know, there were just some classes where I should have applied myself more just for the sake of learning and expanding my mind a bit. Even though at the time I felt it was a waste of time. Maybe it was a waste of time, but I still should have engaged a bit more, because I think it was like I was disengaged stubbornly and obstinately because I was like, I shouldn't be here. And I think just that energy was what I regret. Maybe if it had been like, I'm coming into this open-minded, wanting to learn, and I'm bored out of my mind, so I can't pay attention now. That's one thing. But for me, it was like, I hate this. They can't make me learn. So that I kind of regret that. One that's maybe a bit more tough is like not being more in touch with people, like friends and family. And that one is remediable for those people who are still around. And so you can kind of learn your lesson and be like, oh man, I missed out talking to people because they passed away. So I better talk to people while they're here. And, you can, I guess you can kind of beat yourself up for whatever. I guess, I don't know. It's like my uncle, my great uncle, my grandmother's brother passed away last year. And I kind of really regretted not talking to him more, because it was like I don't know, for the last year or so that he was alive, I didn't call him or anything. And it was one of those things where it wasn't like out of trying to be, I don't know, it's like not that I didn't want to talk to him, but it was also just like, I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot of different things into it. You're like, you don't want to bother him. You can't find the time. It's like you keep, I don't know. And then it's this ironic thing where after it's been a while, then you feel weird calling because it's been so long, and you feel bad, so you don't want to talk to them because you have to acknowledge that it's been so long. So then you just never call. But I do regret that, and you don't want it to happen again after that. And there have been other times, I guess I've been lucky that I haven't known that many people who have passed away, but it's like, just, random people that here and there who have passed away over the past 5-10 years, who you just kind of assumed were always going to be there, and you could talk to them once every couple years. And it's not like you were great friends or anything, but you just sort of someone who's part of your life who you can check in with, and then they're gone, and you're like, maybe I should have checked in with them more. But I don't know. The other part of it is all the modern ways of communicating make it so easy to communicate with everyone that you know and keep in touch with everyone that you've ever met, that it's like this is like more expectation to communicate than perhaps there ever was before. You know, back when there was just, you couldn't call someone, you had to just write a letter or see them in person. I'm sure they didn't regret not being able to talk to people because they couldn't. So it's like, how much should you just take advantage of it? And then how much of it do you have to let go of the guilt of like, look, I can't keep up with, 1,000 different people, especially someone of my temperament who's not extroverted. And I really like, I used to hate talking on the phone. Then I worked in a job where I was answering the phone all the time, so I didn't care after a while. And now I'm back to a place where I hate it. It's not like I get anxiety like I used to, but I just hate it. I just don't want to do it anymore. And so it's not good. But it's tough to keep in touch. But if you know you're going to regret it later, you got to at least make an effort. And so there are a lot of people who I just kind of like ping every quarter or every year or so just to say hi. And I'm like, I know this is weird for me to just say hi, but that's all I got. And at least I won't regret not saying hi. So, and then I guess the last thing that I regret, but this is tough because it's like you can know you're going to regret it and still do it, is not enjoying life more and being like stressed about stuff all the time. And it's like, it's easy to look back and say, I should have been happy. I shouldn't have been stressed, because when you're looking back, you know that things were okay because you're here. But there's, when you're in the present moment, you don't, like, tomorrow isn't guaranteed. So you don't have that assuredness of the future. Like if I could get, a note from future me, even just a few years, and not even saying anything, just saying I'm alive and your family is alive. Okay, then I'll stop worrying. It's not that I worry every day about dying, but it's just like, that's an example of just kind of the basic uncertainty of the present moment. And everything else is also uncertain. And I guess maybe that's the lesson of life, is to just accept all the uncertainty and not worry about it, not get stressed about it. Because no matter what you do, life is uncertain. Like you could think you have all the security in the world and it can get knocked out from under you. It would take a lot, the more secure that you are, but it could still happen. But I look, it's like you gain perspective. Like you're always gaining new perspective, but I feel like you're always kind of losing perspective too. Because being on YouTube is a roller coaster that's kind of difficult to handle sometimes, just because I'm a lot better at it now, but I used to be like so attached to the numbers, and like any kind of fluctuation, any kind of downturn would like send me spiraling, right? And it's funny because looking back, it's like I'd kill for those downturn numbers now, I would literally murder someone. Nah, I'm kidding. It's just a turn of phrase, people. Don't call the cops on me. But I just wish that, like it's like when my channel was the most popular 3 or 4 years ago, yeah, I could enjoy it. But that only lasted like days, that peak doesn't last that long. Okay, maybe weeks or months, but it's like, and the time going down, well, I guess you enjoy the ride up, but then anytime it took a dip, it was like, oh my gosh, no, it's all going away now. I wish I could have just enjoyed it. And at the time I even knew that. I was reading quotes from people who were like, man, I wish I had just enjoyed, my career when I was in the middle of it. And now it's funny because it's like I am much less affected by the numbers, but it's like I can't get to the point where I'm like enjoying it the way that I wish I had enjoyed it back then, And even on a more existential level, I saw like this is so stupid, like a Vsauce short on YouTube where Vsauce Michael was saying that some study where it's like old people say that the average age that people report being the happiest is 37, which is my age now, or maybe it was 36. But it was like, why do people look back on that as like the happiest year of their life? And, his speculation was that it was like, because, that's when people are kind of in the prime of life and they have their young families and they're, doing well in their careers and all that. But like when you are 36, you're not enjoying it. But it's because you have so much stress about like what's going to happen, like the uncertainty of the present moment. But when you're 90 and looking back, you're like, yeah, that was great, because it goes fairly well after that. So I just try to keep that in mind. I try to have the perspective of a 90-year-old and be like, dude, this is great. You're killing it. Just don't worry about it. Forget about it. But that's hard. It's easier said than done, That's what I have to say about regrets. Thanks for attending my therapy session.